Laurie Strode is part of the Halloween chapter in Dead by Daylight. Her 3 unique perks are Sole Survivor, Object of Obsession, and Decisive Strike. The teachable versions of these perks appear on her blood web at levels 30, 35, and 40.
Sole Survivor. Your aura cannot be read by the killer within a max range of 20, 22, or 24 meters for each killed or sacrificed survivor. Increases your chances to be the killer's obsession. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time.
This perk is a little complicated and doesn't work in the way that you may originally think. It doesn't just subtract directly from the killer's aura reading perk. For example, Nurse's Calling has a 28-meter range. You would think it would make it so the killer can only see you with Nurse's Calling if they are 4 meters away from you, but that's not the case.
They can see your aura when they are 24 to 28 meters away from you.
Then when they get closer than that, your aura disappears. Let me clarify how it works with an illustration.
Whenever a survivor dies or disconnects from the match,
Sole Survivor will gain a token. Think of it like this. The first token you get
gives you an invisible 20, 22, or 24 meter protective bubble.
Now, while the killer is in this protective bubble, they cannot see your aura with any aura rating perks.
Each token will increase this invisible bubble's range by an additional 20, 22, or 24 meters.
So let's say you have 1 token in rank 3 Sole Survivor.
This means you have a 24 meter protective bubble around you. The killer has Nurse's Calling, which is a 28 meter bubble around the killer.
Now I'm going to overlap the 2 bubbles. Where these bubbles overlap is the 4 meter range where the killer can see you with Nurse's Calling. But once the killer enters the bubble of protection provided by Sole Survivor, it deactivates Nurse's Calling immediately, and the killer can no longer see you healing. Now, once you get 2 tokens in Sole Survivor, Nurse's Calling would be rendered completely useless, because then you would have a 48 meter protective bubble around you, and Nurse's Calling only sees survivor auras within a 28 meter range, so the killer would always be in your protective bubble. Now I'm going to give you guys another example. So Deerstalker is another aura rating perk that killers have that allows them to see survivors in the dying state within a 36 meter range. So here is the 36 meter bubble around the killer,
and here is the 24 meter bubble around the survivor.
Again, I'm going to overlap these bubbles. Where these bubbles overlap,
this is the 12 meter range where the killer can see you with Deerstalker.
Again, once the killer enters your protective bubble, they can no longer see your aura with Deerstalker.
And you do not get tokens in Sole Survivor if a survivor escapes the match. You only ever get tokens in Sole Survivor if the survivor dies or disconnects. Sole Survivor will also light up whenever it is in use in protecting you from the killer's aura reading, and it will be unlit whenever it is not active. So every time you see Sole Survivor lit up, that means that under normal conditions, the killer would be able to see your aura, so you can use that information to determine what perks or add-ons the killer may have. For example, if you are healing and Sole Survivor lights up, you know the killer has Nurse's Calling. If you are against a Myers and you are just standing around and all of a sudden Sole Survivor lights up, then you know they have a vanity or scratched mirror.
I hope this helped you understand how Sole Survivor works, and you can apply it to other killer aura reading perks and add-ons in the game. One last thing about Sole Survivor though, it does not protect you against aura reading that has an infinite range. So what I'm talking about specifically is Barbecue and Chili. Barbecue and Chili has an unlimited range around the map, and thus Sole Survivor cannot protect you from it. And any other aura reading in the game that has an infinite range, you will not be protected from. So be aware of that.
Object of Obsession. If you are looking in the killer's direction, your link will reveal your auras to each other. This effect applies only if you are outside the killer's terror radius. As the killer's obsession, this effect applies to a maximum range of 56, 64, or 72 meters. Otherwise, it applies to a maximum range of 44, 56, or 64 meters. Increases your chances of being the killer's obsession. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. It is important to note that Sole Survivor does work with Object of Obsession. So if you combine the two perks, it is possible to see the killer's aura without them being able to see you. Object of Obsession is a perk that you have to look in the bottom right corner for because it will light up when it is active and be unlit when it is not active. If you're the killer and you do not have any aura reading perks or add-ons and you're wondering why you can see a survivor's aura, this perk is the reason why. The reason it's important to know to look at Object of Obsession itself in your perks is because the killer status effect Blindness will prevent Object of Obsession aura reading from working, because what Blindness does is prevent all aura reading from working. I have a video about the Blindness status effect which I will link here, if you have any more questions about the Blindness status effect. So while you are blind, you can look at the killer's direction and Object of Obsession will still light up, but since you are blind you will not see their aura. However, the killer will still see your aura, even though you are blind. So you must know that even though you have blindness on you, the killer can still see your aura when you look in their direction. The only time the killer will not see your aura if you have blindness on you is if you are in a locker, because lockers are unique. Lockers protect you against all aura reading in the game, but you will also be blind while you remain in the locker. Object of Obsession will still trigger though if you are looking in the killer's direction in the bottom right corner, so you can at least figure out which direction the killer is. There's only one killer that Object of Obsession doesn't work for right away, and that is Michael Myers. Because when Michael Myers starts a game, he is in Tier 1, and while he is in Tier 1, he is immune to all tracking perks. Unlike Blindness, Object of Obsession will never light up against a Tier 1 Myers. Once he reaches Tier 2, however, Object of Obsession will start acting like normal, and you will be able to see his aura. And Decisive Strike. After being unhooked or unhooking yourself, Decisive Strike will become active and usable for 40, 50, or 60 seconds. While Decisive Strike is active, when grabbed by the killer, succeed a skill check to automatically escape the killer's grasp and stun the killer for 5 seconds. Succeeding or failing, the DS skill check will disable the perk. Successfully stunning the killer will result in you becoming the obsession. Increases your chances of being the obsession, and the killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. You can tell how much time is left on Decisive Strike by looking at the perk in the bottom right corner. It will have this timer indicator on the perk itself. When it becomes unlit, that means you can no longer use it. And that is Laurie's Strode. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you aren't already to help support the channel. If you have any additional questions, comment below and I will help you out. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, good luck out there in the fog, and see ya next time.